Hello. Boop, boop, boop. Hold, please. I have to wait for some more people to show up. I will not be doing accents on this. How do I sound? Do I sound okay?
Oh, hi.
Good. Hello. You're on now. I was just listening to your episode so I could catch up
Oh, thank you.
and make sure that I was ready to go.
I'm hoarse because I literally just finished recording it.
Oh, for real? Damn. Charlie. Dun, dun. Okay. Charlie's in here.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. I feel like I should just go.
I think you should just go. I can back out of here. I just figured I'd
keep me company.
Company.
Thanks, Boo. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I am Lanie Hobbs. I am the podcast host for True Crime Fan Club podcast, which is what you're listening to currently, and the It's Haunted What Now podcast and the Crimes of Passion podcast on the podcast network / Spotify, however that's working these days. I did want to let you know that we are going to be, sorry, I'm making sure that I am following my little script here. But every Thursday, I'm going to be here 7 p.m. Central Standard Time talking about a new true crime case and hoping that, friends. This is so interesting. I don't know. Thank you for joining. So yeah, we're going to be talking about a new true crime case every single Thursday. I might even have my mom join me. She has a ton of interesting stories to share, and she has guest hosted on the podcast before, and everybody seems to really enjoy when she comes on. So she will probably be joining us in the future. So I really, real quick, want to show you who we're going to be discussing today. Let me share my screen so that you can see. We are going to be discussing Melanie Eam and James Barry. Now, typically what we find whenever couples break up, there's, a mourning period that goes on between. Typically the breakups may be great and awesome and they part ways and forget each other existed in the best way possible, or they kind of go back in this circle of getting back together and breaking up, on and on, 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 on again. So that's basically what's happened here with this story for Melanie and James Barry. At the time it started, this crime was committed, Melanie Eam was 20 years old and James Barry was 21 years old. Like I said earlier, they were an on and off again couple. They fought constantly. In fact, it's kind of one of those situations where you look at the couple and you're like, wow, why are they together? All they do is fight. I know plenty of couples, sadly, that are like that, where they constantly are fighting, but then they say like, oh, I have the best relationship ever. That's kind of how they were. Now, everything that precipitated this horrendous event happened because somebody broke up with the other person in a live chat stream, kind of like this. If you've ever heard of the platform Twitch, they basically have an ongoing kind of game tournament every season on this game called League of Legends. And in there, much like this, you can go in and type and have a conversation with other players, etc. So basically that's what happened in this case. One person broke up with them in the chat room of the League of Legends game. And for one of the people in this couple, it would be the last straw. And it would kind of be the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. Now, James and Melanie, they both met in West Palm Beach, Florida, and they began dating. If you saw their picture earlier, you can kind of tell that they're a little bit of an unlikely pair. James, again, was tall, as he describes, pale complexion, super red hair, and just really kind of shy and introverted. And Melanie was shorter. She had dark hair and darker eyes. And it was really noticeable kind of from the beginning that she had a very short temper. So James is from a town called Loxahatchee. Now, if you're from Texas, like I am, it sounds a lot like Waxahachie. So it was easy for me to remember that. So he was born and raised in Loxahatchee, Florida, and he lived in the home with his family, so his mother and stepfather, when he was murdered. So, spoiler alert, he's the one who's murdered. His parents were James Berry Sr. and Nicola Berry. They were divorced. And when James had passed away, Nicola was dating a man named Guy Hand. And he was actually really involved with her children. He actually cared a lot about them and was very close to them. Hold on. That's my mom. Step down, mother.
Let me.
Okay. So fun. Okay. Anyways, so Guy loved her children and he kind of seamlessly fit into the family. He has an older sister named Alexandra, and they were all really, really close, and they all lived together. So they were very, very nice. Now, on November 17th, 2016, this was on a Thursday morning, pre-dawn hours, so it's still a little dark outside. James Berry was stabbed to death in his bedroom inside the home he shared with his mother, his stepfather, and his sister. His mom's boyfriend, Guy, had actually heard James's screams, and that's kind of what jolted him awake out of bed. And I know, you guys, I don't know how to turn the grab spot thing off, but it's kind of funny, so it's fine. You can grab your spot after we're done with this. No, I totally don't care. But anyways, so Guy hears James scream out in pain. Now, he runs upstairs to James's room, opens the door, and sees James like covered in blood. There's a butcher knife that belongs to the family, so it's from the family's kitchen, sitting next to him on the bed. He was in a state of shock seeing James this way, and he tells his wife to call 911, and he attempts to give James life-saving CPR. But unfortunately, he succumbed to his wounds and he was dead on arrival. So whenever first responders arrived, they had pronounced him dead. Now, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department immediately identified a person of interest in this. And if you remember or you followed at all the Jodi Arias case and the Travis Alexander case, then that's kind of how it happened. If you recall, in that specific case, Travis was found in his in his house, in his shower, dead from multiple stab wounds and from a gunshot wound, although that's not what ultimately ended his life. But when his body was found and the officers arrived on the scene, multiple people were pointing the finger at Jodi because they had had so many issues, and she was acting very strange and possessive and stalking him and, crawling through a doggy door like a crazy person. So that's kind of how it unfolded to where Melanie became a person of interest in this. Now, by Friday, they are on the search for her. They want to talk to her. They want to find out, if she was there in the house or if they had any problems. They had been hearing from Guy, from Nicola, from James's family and friends, basically, that Melanie and him had a ton of issues. And they, just wanted to ask her questions. But after 3 days, they couldn't find her. And they finally got a tip that she was in Maryland visiting her family. So she had basically, under the cover of night, pretty much that same Thursday night, drove about 1,000 miles, or she drove halfway and then got a plane ticket, about 1,000 miles to Silver Springs, Maryland. I don't know if maybe she thought she would get away with it if she was just hiding out, but you can tell that this was kind of a not well thought out plan of escape, if you will. She went to kind of an obvious place. I mean, you are going to look at a person's family first to see where they might be, and that's kind of how they found her. So within 3 days, she was actually found and arrested. Now, they learned that while she was waiting to be extradited to Florida, that she had actually shared that they were in a relationship for several years, but they had recently broken up. And James was the one who had initiated the breakup. He was the one who had gone into the League of Legends. Sorry, he was the one who had gone into the League of Legends chat and posted in there that he was basically done with the relationship and he wanted to move on. Now, a lot of people think that the reason that he chose to do it in this kind of public forum was because he was really scared about talking to Melanie face to face and having this discussion with her face to face because of how short her temper was and how often they got into fights. So I can understand. I think a lot of teenagers and younger adults may choose that way. It's kind of like ghosting people to break up with another person, right? You try to avoid the confrontation, you want to rip the Band-Aid off, and you want to just be done with it. And so for some people, that would be like, wow, that was really hurtful. I can't believe that that's how you choose to break up with me, and be really hurt and offended for a while and then move on with their lives. But that's not the case with Melanie. With Melanie, this was too much for her. She could not handle it. When she was finally brought into Florida and questioned in regards to the death of James Barry, she actually had confessed to the murder. She said that she admitted to killing him, stabbing him multiple times, and the confession was actually recorded. And when Melanie was asked if she had killed James and how, she confessed it was because he broke up with her by text or through the chat. But the scariest part is when she was asked how many times she stabbed her former lover, Melanie simply said, quote, "I don't know. It's not like I counted." Like, that's kind of chilling to think about. And again, it kind of brings me back to the whole Jodi Arias thing, where she was very nonchalant about the crime that she committed, you know, when she was trying to defend herself and saying that she was this victim of violence and domestic abuse and that she had to do what she had to do. But as we all know, and if you followed the Travis Alexander case, it was a case of overkill. You know, like, he was incapacitated kind of from the beginning, and she had a way to get out and she didn't. So back to Melanie. When she's finally arraigned before a judge, she decides to plead not guilty by the advice of her counsel. Now, this is done for multiple reasons. Even though she had already confessed, they typically will enter plea of not guilty during an arraignment so that the defendant can either qualify for a plea or maybe even get the charges dismissed if there's some profound reason, like procedural error or evidence that shows there was maybe another person who was responsible for this murder. She was brought to trial on September of 2018. Take a swig of your drink. I'm drinking wine tonight. Cheers. Okay. So she was brought to trial September of 2018. And Melanie's defense was to completely ignore that she had confessed to the murder of James Barry, and instead went and pulled the attention to James's stepfather, Guy. She said, or rather her defense team said, that Guy had actually moved the murder weapon and then washed one of his bloody hands after. So that's what made him guilty. So the story was that Guy got into a shouting match with Melanie, and when James tried to stop them, he was accidentally stabbed numerous times, not by Melanie, but by Guy. So to me, I don't know how that defense makes sense at all. But when Guy was put on the stand, he was kind of not really passing the snuff test to the jury. He maintained when he was on the stand that he did move the butcher knife that he found because he just wanted to be safe. Like, he wasn't sure if the person was still there who had done this. So he wanted to make sure that the knife was out of reach and that he didn't have it while he was attempting to perform CPR on James. But this explanation of why he moved the gun seemed to cause doubt in the jury. And so they couldn't really agree on a guilty verdict. And now you're looking at it thinking, like, how does this one thing change it? But what the defense was able to do was show that there was possibly another motive or possibly another explanation for James's death, and that Melanie likely wasn't responsible for it. So if you don't know this, which I think is really interesting for Florida, and when I was watching the Casey Anthony trial, that's kind of what I've learned. And then they get to ask questions, which I think is incredible. So anyways, they end up going back to the jury room to deliberate. They deliberate for 2 days, and they come back with a hung jury. So the judge declares a mistrial. Now, in Florida, there's only a 6-person jury, and the final vote in the first trial was 4 in favor of second-degree murder and 2 against it. But the state decided, they were going to retry Melanie Eam again and hopefully secure the guilty verdict that they were searching for. And then they definitely wanted to tighten up the prosecutor's case by kind of eliminating the suspicion around Guy, like there was in the first trial that the first defense basically tried to do. So the second trial for Melanie starts in January of last year, January of 2019. The prosecutor goes over their case, and they describe the murder as, quote, and I think this is kind of hilarious given the fact that I host this podcast, as, quote, a crime of passion because Melanie was angry about how she was dumped. And the assistant state attorney at the time, who was Lauren Godden, read some of the text message exchanges between James and Melanie from when they broke up. The text breakup was later posted to a League of Legends chat room, which just added insult to injury for Melanie. Like I said earlier, this would normally, any rational person would normally respond to this in a way that would show that they were hurt and offended, but they would move on. I think we've all had some difficult breakups in our past. If you haven't, then you're lucky. But if you have, then you kind of know how that feels to go through this breakup where it feels, kind of like a blindsided move. And you're just like, whoa, okay, what did I do? That's basically how Melanie felt at the time. They also wanted to, like I said earlier, eliminate suspicion from Guy. And so they pointed out a little bit more harshly, the prosecutor pointed out a little bit more harshly that Melanie was the only person who had left the state of Florida after James's death. It seemed that she was already guilty by doing that. And she was actually the only person that had ever confessed to the crime immediately. Oh, geez. Hold on. Sorry. So how they think the murder happened is that Melanie had gone over to James's house kind of late in the evening, early morning, and had wanted a response to why he decided to break up with her in such a kind of public forum, but then also just his reasoning behind wanting to break up. So they did argue, and it isn't clear that this was heard by anybody else in the house. So I would think that if it was, then Guy would have testified to that, and Nicola would have testified to that yes, Melanie was there, but they truly really didn't know. So they had basically fought this whole time. James was trying to answer her and give her the response that hopefully would, end the whole thing. They could move on and go their separate ways. But none of that really satisfied Melanie enough. So she ends up going downstairs to the Berry kitchen, and she grabs one of the butcher knives there. And that's when she comes up and surprises, much like, again, this really, to me, this mirrors a lot of the Jodi Arias case, because it's all a surprise, right? They don't see it coming. Otherwise, I think there could have been some defense from them. So she basically comes back upstairs and she starts stabbing James to death. And he has multiple stab wounds to his upper torso, arms, and everything, and is declared dead on scene. The state's attorney, when Guy was on the stand, asked him, "Did you kill James Barry?" And Guy kind of broke down and said, "No, I loved him like he was my son. I would never do that." And then when they were doing their closing arguments, the prosecutor kind of used a phrase from a poem that everybody should know. It's like, "There's nothing like a woman scorned." So hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, basically, is what they said. The defense tried to come back in saying, she didn't know what she was doing when she confessed to the crime. There was no DNA testing done on the knife to say that she for sure did it. I, again, don't think that they would necessarily test the DNA evidence if they already had a confession. It seemed kind of, open and shut at that point. But I can kind of see the argument for both ways, that you want to be sure that this is the person who did kill this man by testing it. But it is expensive and it does take a long time. So they likely went with everything else, that the circumstantial evidence that stated Melanie had murdered James was strong enough to forego doing the DNA testing. You guys can tell me what you think about that. But the juries are permitted. Let's see. Yes. Okay, so it should be noted. Sorry, I have little notes here. It should be noted that the verbiage "proven beyond a reasonable doubt" is not the same as "proven beyond all reasonable doubt." Juries are permitted to believe some parts of testimony and reject other components, and circumstantial evidence is also allowed to be considered. So after the second trial, this only lasted 2 days. It did not take the length of time because they were able to kind of reuse the evidence that they had in the first trial. So they cut everything down into 2 days. She was eventually found guilty of second-degree murder by the jury. They only deliberated 4 hours to determine that she was guilty, and she faced life in prison for her role in James Barry's murder. Now, when the verdict was rendered, James Barry's family, so his mother Nicola, his father, and his stepfather, had all gone on the news and said that they were overjoyed. They were so happy that James finally got justice. And they thought that the whole reason for his death was stupid and pointless. It didn't make any sense. It was just somebody who had basically gotten their feelings hurt. But they were able to share their feelings about their relationship with James and how he was as a person during the sentencing phase. So they gave verbal statements to the court about James and the kind of person that he was. His grandmother and sister both spoke about the horrible scene they endured upon finding James. They described the bloody scene and how there was nothing they could do to save him. Everyone talked about how wonderful James was and how much they'll miss him. Witnesses for the defense testified at the sentencing hearing too. That included a clinical and forensic psychologist who was Dr. Heather Holmes. She spoke about Melanie's upbringing, detailing incidences of sexual and physical abuse. And the defense team wanted the judge to see that there were mitigating factors as to why she would commit this crime. So basically saying that she had trust issues and other psychological issues that would cause her to react in a homicidal way, if you will. Let's see. They try to, and not in a bad way, right? So if the abuse that she suffered is true, and I always tend to lean towards people saying like, yes, this is true for them. It does make sense. And if it had gone untreated in terms of if she didn't have any counseling or anything like that, then it does make sense of why she would react or have such a short temper. I don't know that it doesn't, to me, excuse anybody murdering somebody, especially somebody that you're sitting here saying you love, But on April 3rd, 2019, she was sentenced to serve 50 years in prison. She was only 20 when the killing happened and about 22 years old by the time she was sentenced, which means the first time that she's going to be eligible for parole she'll be 72 years, meaning that she may be free to live outside of the prison walls one day. But at that point, I'm not sure that it's going to be a life worth living if she's spent most of her adulthood and literally her later years in prison. It's crazy. So James's best friend, Jeff, said via social media that he was with James when he died. His quote from Facebook read, "I was forced to watch my best friend pass away in my arms." He too describes his friend as a good person. It hasn't been verified, though, through any of the research that the team did, that he was actually there. And I don't know, you find those people in any type of true crime case that kind of latch on and make the story more about them than the other person. And you see that too sometimes when, less mature people lose people that they love or that they care about, that they're friends with. They often will memorialize them in a way that brings attention back to them as opposed to the person who passed. So I think that's kind of what happened. It doesn't make any sense that Jeff would have been there watching James die and then not be able to take Melanie down. It just doesn't make any sense for me. Let's see. So James's mom, Nicola, she has a really hard time losing her son, especially in the manner that she did. And she gave a quote to CBS 12 saying that James was so kind and always giving everybody another chance. He's so loved and missed. She is in complete disbelief that he is gone and described him as a great child. His father said, quote, "He would do anything for anyone, always put other people first all the time. This is a terrible loss of life for everyone involved, and one thing everyone agrees on is just how much James will be missed." So I wanted to share this story because of the parallels that it brings to mind with the whole Jodi Arias case and Travis Alexander case. And I'm remiss to talk about Jodi because I truly do not care about her at all. I'm oversaturated with Travis Alexander's murder, but not about his death. Like, I think his death was a tragedy, but I guess I should say I'm oversaturated with Jodi Arias. I'm so tired of seeing her in the news, but I couldn't help but to see the parallel between these two murders. And although Melanie and James were fairly young when they got involved into this relationship, so if they were 20, they had been together since they were 18 and 19 respectively. And that's really young to be in a very serious relationship and have these feelings. Now, you don't get to hear a lot, or there isn't a lot available about Melanie's background and her childhood, just what we heard in trial. And it's just kind of insane to me that this was her reaction. And for those who did not see these people, I want to be able to show you who. So again, this is Melanie and this is James here. So again, an unlikely pair, but the murder senseless and absolutely makes no sense. Your guys' thoughts on this crime in particular, and if it reminds you of anything else, or if you want to offer your thoughts and opinion, you can get on the video chat if you want to, or you can chat in the chat room to the side. And I'll just say hi to everybody who's here. Thank you so much for coming and not leaving me alone. So we have Josh Hallmark, who is the host of True Crime Bullshit, and he is actually going to be on at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, doing his follow-up for his after show, which just released, so listen to it. Charlie's here from Crime Lines. Sam, who is a very great supporter of the show, is here as well. Lisa, who hosts Crime and Precedents, and then also manages Spective Productions. Robin from The Trail Went Cold. Jen from our True Crime podcast. And I think that's it. Hold on. My mom's here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, my mom's in here. She was the one who got on the video spot. So my mom is actually going to be joining us for a future broadcast where we're going to share some of our true crime stories that happened within our family, because the reason that I am so involved and so fascinated by true crime is really thanks to her and to my grandma. They both got me into true crime. I loved watching unsolved mysteries, that type of thing. So we have a lot of stories to share, unfortunately. I also think that my uncle may have murdered somebody, but you never know. Cheers. We can share the story about my uncle later. It was in a previous episode for True Crime Fan Club way early on. But yeah, I started thinking about it and I was like, that is a little suspicious. But everybody says he didn't do it, so maybe he didn't do it. Oh my God. Sam said, this reminds me of when one of my brothers called the police on the other because he kicked him and his girlfriend out of a Warcraft clan. Whatever it's called. Are you kidding? Oh my God, you guys, that's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm super excited to be doing this. This is really dope. I'm going to be moving my studio to my actual studio later. I just had to get the setup all here. But yeah, I am super excited. So this case came up. It reminded me a lot of the whole Jodi Arias thing. And it just kind of fascinates me when these relationships turn this way. I don't think I've ever been in a relationship that was that tumultuous or that kind of abusive, if you will. It seems like James was a victim of abuse, if you will. He seemed to have been on the receiving end of a lot of hateful, comments from Melanie and things like that. And I just think it's really sad that that's kind of how she decided to show her love for him. And maybe that's how she knew to do it, but I think it's still really upsetting to kind of see that happening. Let's see. I'm checking all of the streams because I can actually live stream from so many other places, which is awesome. Thank you. My mom has done a great job. I agree. She has a lot of great stories to share, and she takes my criticism of her hosting well, because I am not very easy to record for if you are related to me. I make you do it over and over again. So I think the very first time that she had a episode with me, I made her record it like 10 times or so. So yeah, it's going to be great. But I am excited and I'm so glad you guys are here. And I hope that everybody who is a podcaster on here decides to join GetVokl so that, you can do this too and I can support you and it'll be fun and amazing. And let's see, Jen, thank you, Lisa. Hello. Sorry, I was just accepting your friend request. So let's see, what else was I just thinking of? So yeah, so that's basically it on the Melanie Eam case. I'm working on what I want to talk about next week, but I also wanted to talk about kind of the craziness that is the Lori Vallow case. Now, Charlie from Crime Lines did an incredible job of putting together an episode all about the Lori Vallow case up until I think she was extradited back to wherever she's from. I just forgot. Where is she from? Oh my gosh, the town, the state escapes my brain. Idaho. There you go. So yeah, it's so nuts to me. And I was teetering on, if you don't know anything about the case, it is way too long to go into. There's so many players. Listen to Charlie's episode. If you are a YouTube watcher like I am, you can follow Bailey Sarian's channel. She did a great episode on the Vallow case. But anyways, so I was teetering before, even after Charlie's podcast and after watching Bailey's video, I was teetering on if the kids were still alive or not. And I really thought that they, best case scenario is that they are alive and they're being hidden in some cult shelter with some other people who are refusing to give them up, or they're actually dead. After hearing the latest development about Lori thinking the kids were zombies and that she had to save them, and you hear that with every parent that kills their kid that is developing some type of psychosis, or pretending to develop a psychosis, that they had to save them And that's why they, like, you think about Andrea Yates, for instance, she did the same thing. Like, she had to kill her children to save them. So when I heard the whole zombie issue, I was like, oh God, I think those kids are dead. So it's really crazy because Charlie made a good point on her Twitter once when the defense for Lori was attempting to lower her bond to something more manageable, I think like $10,000. Charlie said something like she has her get out of jail free card. She just has to show that her kids are fine and alive. And literally, she would be out of jail, maybe, because she would still be responsible for abandoning them. And now that we know that, JJ had several health issues that required medication and those haven't been refilled or anything like that, it kind of, freaks me out a little bit. So I definitely think that they have passed. And I know what the other thing was. The other thing was when it came out that Lori had purchased her wedding dress and her wedding ring before Tammy had even died. That's Chad Daybell's wife. See, it's so complicated and crazy and convoluted. That's also these people are nuts. Because then it proves to me in my mind that for sure they murdered her husband on purpose and they murdered his wife on purpose and they got rid of their kids on purpose, or her children on purpose. Charlie said that I thought they might be alive until I found out Chad told his family that Lori didn't have kids at home. If the kids were alive, how would he explain their reappearance? True. Why not just say she had younger kids who lived with their dad or a family member? Chad could only say she didn't have minor children because he knew he'd never have to explain them showing back up. That's true. See, that's creepy. Oh my God, you guys, this whole case is insane to me. And I don't know when the breakthrough will happen, but I just feel like it should be happening soon. It needs to happen soon. We need to kind of have an understanding of why they're choosing to go this route. Like, it seems like the most difficult route. It could be because she realizes she'll be tried for murder, but time's going to pass and they're going to presume that these kids are dead and deceased, or they'll happen upon something like the whole storage unit videos and things like that. They'll happen upon something that shows that, they had passed. And then she's going to be tried for murder. So either way, to me, this ends up with murder, but maybe with people who are in cultist type of religions, they don't think that it's going to happen to them, or I don't know. I have no idea what to think about that. I don't know, like the whole end of the world thing. Maybe they think the whole COVID-19 is showing or proving that their predictions are right. That's what I was just thinking. Like all doomsday people, when the whole COVID thing happened, were probably like, see, I told you it's coming. And they were probably like sadly cheering on the fact that they were right, despite this being a terrible thing that's going on right now in our country. So, it's terrible. Okay. So let's see. Can't get over that. Calling the police on a chat thing. I call that a League of Legends game Pummel Circle because my husband watches it and I think it's literally the same game all the time. It's crazy. Let me see. Hold on. You guys share stuff with me because I don't know. I really like this platform. How do you guys think about it? Do you guys like the quality so far, the chat options, the video options? I think it's cool that you can join and talk with me if you wanted to. So if you feel the need and you're like down to do it, get on the video and we can chat about the craziness and talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm here for it. Let me see. I don't know. I'm excited to see Josh's after show because he is so presentable, so well liked. And I love Charlie too. She's funny. So I can't wait to see that. Anywho, let me see. I might give you your time back because I don't really have a lot to say anymore, and I'm a little like, ugh. So, my dog's here. You want to come here and say hi? You want to come here and say hi to everybody? Hey, come here. This is Bubba. He doesn't care about me. Come here. Oh, yeah. This is my dog, Bubba. He's a handsome boy. But he does not love me. He only loves his dad. He was not my dog first. He was Brett's dog first. So he's only in love with him. Oh, really? Good. Maybe it's because of my mic. Because I'm not using my phone like I do on Facebook Live. I don't know, maybe. But I do like the function of being able to come in and have everybody join and stuff like that. So I think that, look at him. He's like, can you please let me go? I hate you. It smells like cake batter, huh? Okay, you can get out of here. Don't knock anything down. Thank you. Anywho, he's the sweetest boy in the whole entire world. I'm drinking this kind of not great. This, I think, is my first wink wine that I'm not too happy with. Maybe it just needs time to grow on me, but it's very like dry. I'm not a fan of dry white reds. Not my fan. Okay, so I'm going to give you your time back. Also because I want to finish up Josh's podcast so I can join him for his live later. But thank you guys so much for coming and joining me. I'm so excited. I will pick a longer case next time so I have more content to go through throughout the time. But I think 45 minutes is good. But thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Make sure you are social distancing if you can. Wash your hands, you nasty people. I'm just kidding. Wash your hands. And I would give you a clue for next week, but I haven't decided what I want to do. I think I might do either. Oh, and by the way, this was researched by Brittany Martinez, who was the content editor for our show, and written by Mary Cole, who is also by a writer for our show. But I think I might do Neil Falls for the next one. Oh, no, I did him for Patreon. I don't know, maybe Burger Chef or something. Haley gave me a lot of research for that. So maybe I'll do that. But, ooh, Robin, I hope you join. That would be great. I want everybody to join. I think it's awesome. Okay, I'm going to go give your time back. And thank you guys again for joining me. I have no idea what I'll do next week, but we'll figure it out. And I'll put a hint on social media somewhere. Okay, bye, guys. Thank you again. Bye.